This is a follow-up to the interview, mental status exam with Claire, who was being a patient that was delusional about being Katniss Everdeen. She was obviously, general appearance. She was clean. She was dressed like she would be if she were Katniss, and she was healthy appearing. She walked normally. She sat normally. Most of her interaction was appropriate, although she laughed and smiled at times that were inappropriate. She paid good attention to the interviewer, but sometimes she was squirming a little bit, and her eye contact was mostly good, but once in a while it would go away. She would sometimes twist her head to the side or smile inappropriately. The twisting to the side, we all know, was just because she was she was on camera and she was laughing. That was not part of the role play, but at any rate, her facial expression was pretty good. She didn't show a lot of emotion, even when she was talking about killing the president. At times she would kind of start trying to tie words together, but her behavior was not really too inappropriate given how delusional she was. Calmly sitting in the back of her chair or leaning forward and paying attention to a really normal tone of voice. Now, she did serial sevens faster than I could keep up with. It's just a hint. If you have somebody who's really good at math like that, you might want to write your serial sevens down ahead of time so that if they get ahead of you, you can keep up. She did good with, well, we don't really know. It was hard to assess her in many ways because, for one thing, I don't know the story of the Hunger Games. I've heard about it a little bit, like I said in the interview, from my daughter, but I have not read any of it. So what was real and what was delusional for her was difficult for me to ascertain. Most of the time I felt like a lot of it was coming from the story, talking about capturing and eating squirrels and berries. When she talked about her birthday, her high school, and graduation, if you were documenting this on a mental status exam, you'd want to be sure to write that down so that when you did get a hold of somebody who was a reliable person, you could find out if that was the truth, whether she really did know that about herself. She was able to repeat the 3 words for immediate memory and short-term memory. She remembered those words a little bit later when I finally remembered to go back and ask her. Intellectual function, she said she was fairly good, general fund of knowledge. She said she named 5 large cities, said she was in nursing school. When we did the proverbs, we were trying to check for abstraction. She was pretty concrete. And in reality, what I should have done was give her some paired things, because all of the 3 proverbs that I gave her, she was very concrete about. So if you gave her some things like, what's the similarities between an apple and an orange, or the differences between a bicycle and a bus, those type of things, you could test abstraction at a lower level. Let's see. Types of intelligence. She had lots and lots of strengths. Good linguistics. She claimed she had a good vocabulary to begin with, just in the interview. And then she also claimed to know some Italian and some French. Again, hard to tell. And I don't know any Italian or any French, so she could say anything to me and I wouldn't know whether it was or not. Good with math, good with spatial, those engineering background. Again, if it's not delusional. Music I would still count as a strength, even though she says she's not good at singing or can't play any instruments. Music does bring her some peace, and there are some that she really likes. Bodily kinesthetic, being a hunter, that's quite, that takes a lot of abilities, actually. And interpersonal. I wasn't really sure about her answer, where she said nobody likes her, others avoid her, she's rebellious. Might sound to me like that could be the character, Katniss. So again, that's something you'd have to watch. Interpersonal, she doesn't understand her need for treatment and doesn't have any knowledge about her mental illness at all. When you tested her judgment in 3 areas, she gave very good answers, displaying good judgment. Sometimes, though, good judgment on being able to answer those types of questions does not translate well into their everyday life. I already mentioned insight. That was poor. Thinking and cognition. She really had fixed, grandiose delusions about being Katniss. Star of a very recent popular book series. These delusions were incorporated throughout the interview. She denied hallucinations, but she should be watched closely for that. Mood was 4 to 5 out of 10. She said she had threatened to eat poisonous berries at one time in the Hunger Games, but really didn't intend to follow through on that. Denied current suicidal thoughts or ideation. Homicidal, though, was enough to keep her in the hospital. She had a plan to use a bow and arrow if she was put back in the Hunger Games to kill again. Right now, she doesn't have access to that means of being able to kill someone. It's in the custody of hospital security. So, in summary, she's a healthy 21-year-old female with delusions about being Katniss Everdeen. It's hard to tell what's delusional and what's real. You have to consider the information she's given you as unreliable until we find an informant that can give us information about her. She does have homicidal delusions, but she claims she would follow through on. If she were an outpatient, she would need to be committed. But this was an inpatient interview, so she was already coming into the hospital anyway. As far as the interview itself, frankly, I have that annoying head bobbing, so it's hard to watch, so sorry about that. But anyway, I had to dodge a lot of things with her. I had to dodge getting her bow and arrow back, which she asked for right away. Delusional content was spread throughout, so I had to dodge being drawn into those delusions. She had delusions that were very integrated into her life, it appeared. Very fixed delusions. I had to work really hard to get specificity from her on suicidal and homicidal plans or thoughts. What you would really need in order to be able to treat her appropriately would, if possible, would be to be able to find somebody who knows her, who can tell you what the truth is. It's hard to imagine that somebody that is this delusional is wandering around there all the time and has never been involved in any sort of treatment. I didn't want to play into her delusions at all. So at this point, early in establishing a rapport, you can't confront her about her delusions. That will only make a very distant relationship. She may just basically cut me out and not want to have anything to do with me if I tell her, I know you're not Katniss Everdeen, and you might as well quit this. That's not going to work at all. So now later on, as she has medications that start to soften her delusional content, then you might be able to work with her and try to find out, what do these delusions mean to her? How do they impact her life? Help her think through those sort of things so that you can get her to recognize that they are delusions and that a plan needs to be made to help her get through it. But thank you very much, and thank you, Claire.